Okay, hi everybody. Thank you for being here today. My name is Nahla Al-Malawani, and I am honored to be moderating today's panel. We will be discussing the content and media production industry in the MENA region. We have very interesting panel of speakers with us today from diverse areas of expertise who will be taking us through their journey, challenges, potential growth opportunities, and they will also be showcasing some of their flagship titles or talking about them. Please welcome Layla Hamada, the CEO and co-founder of a podcast network, Final Media. We also have with us Ahmed Dewi, the managing director of IC Media. I will start by Layla. First, I was just have to say that unfortunately our third speaker was not able to join us today. So now we will be talking, I will be handing it over to Layla. Layla, again, a quick introduction about Layla. She is the CEO and co-founder of Final Media, a podcast network for young Arab listeners. Layla has 15 years of experience working in media and telecoms across Europe, Africa, and Middle East. She started her career in London at Fremantle Media, and throughout her journey, she worked as management consultant and in-house strategy expert for large companies such as OSN and Etisalat. So Layla, I will be handing over to you to take us through your presentation if you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Thank you so much for having me here today. I will just pull up my screen, and I'm very happy to kind of talk to you today a little bit about the podcast landscape here in the MENA region, give you a little bit of context on the wider sort of industry and market trends in the podcast industry, and talk to you a little bit about some of the shows that we have in audio, which are now in the process of also being produced in video as well. So I'll start by sort of taking a step back and hopefully giving you a little bit of context here. So I'm sure many of you are existing podcast listeners, but when we think about what's happened in the podcasting industry over the last couple of years, I don't think anyone can argue that there hasn't been a real boom in the sector and an absolute explosion in terms of podcast listenership and consumption. And you really just have to look at the headlines to see how exciting the growth has been. And now we're seeing not just media companies and individual content creators producing podcasts, but also big film studios. You know, there's Marvel podcasts, there are DC Comics podcasts, and that's to say nothing of, you know, the Netflix recent hire of a head of international podcast for the streaming platform. So there's a lot going on in the industry, and you know, a lot of this I think was fueled by the pandemic. And what's exciting is that, you know, in 2020 alone, we saw 17,000 new podcast titles coming onto the market every single week. So there was a huge growth in both the supply and the demand of podcasts. And what's very exciting for us here in the MENA region is that a big chunk of the new podcasts coming onto the market are in languages other than English. So now we're seeing a huge explosion in terms of Arabic language podcasts as well. So to give you a sense of what we do, we're sort of aiming to address this market. We are a podcast network, and we produce predominantly Arabic language audio stories, which aim to engage with young Arab listeners and help them kind of reconnect with the Arab world. To put that in numbers for you, we were established just about 3 years ago now, and the growth has been really staggering. So we've reached already 8 million podcast downloads across around 300 different podcast episodes. And what's exciting is that, you know, we have engagement rates that are as high as 94% on average, meaning 94% of the average episode is actually completed by the listeners. So there's clearly a demand in the Arab world for this type of audio content, which really previously wasn't being catered to. Some of the titles that we have in the network are on this slide, and you can see that the shows that are along the top row here are all scripted podcasts, while the ones along the bottom are more non-scripted. So there's a huge range in the type of genres that we produce for podcasts. And actually, you know, where the West has typically been dominated by talk show formats and interview style podcast series, what we're seeing is that there's massive demand here in the region for more sort of fictional content. So our shows range from adaptations of classic stories and characters like Alf Layla wa Layla, the stories of Juha, the adventures of Sindbad, to some more sort of contemporary drama series, which are completely original and scripted by us, like The Basement, or our new science fiction series, which is the first sci-fi series ever produced on podcasts for the region, which is called The Code. So our podcasts are produced in-house by us and then distributed across all major audio platforms. So that's everything from Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts to the music streaming platforms, including Anghami, Deezer, Spotify. And I think in total, there's probably 100 or 200 different platforms. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find our shows. Most of our listeners are right here in the GCC, and Saudi is a very big audience for us. It represents almost half of the total listenership, but the vast majority of our listeners are scattered across the Gulf region. And we recently also launched a premium service. So this is a trend that we're seeing at an industry level, definitely growing in the podcasting world. So similar to the way we have these sort of freemium models in online streaming for video, we have exactly the same thing for podcasts. So we recently launched Vinyal Plus, which is our subscription channel. And this offers listeners the opportunity to access our content ad-free, early access so that they can binge listen to a whole season at once, and also some exclusive podcast series that are only available for subscribers. So I'll talk to you a little bit about some of the great shows that we have in the network now, just to give you a flavor of what can be done on podcasts. So the first one I'll talk to is called Alsilah. Now, this is a Saudi dialect drama series, which is centered around two brothers who sort of receive a cryptic call from their father asking them to come home, and they embark on a journey all the way from Jeddah to Dammam in Saudi Arabia, and we follow their journey and all the sort of twists and turns of the plot along the way. So this show did incredibly well. In a very short space of time, it already hit 250,000 downloads. And during Ramadan, this was the #1 Saudi fictional series. So I'll just play a very short trailer for this show to give you a flavor of what it's about and what you can expect from podcasts.
الو فهد يا ولدي، احتاجك انتوا فارس تجوني الخبر. لازم اروح لابوي. والله ابوك هذا ما راح يتغير ابدا، 26 سنه ونفس الدراما تتكرر. اسمع، وقد اكتشفت السلطات أن رجل الأعمال عبد الرحمن الشرعاوي قد قام برشوة بعض الموظفين في قطاعات مختلفة لتزوير المستندات المطلوبة لإكمال التعمير. يعني ما فكرت في أرواح ممكن تموت بسبب سوء البنية التحتية؟ فكرت بالمساكين اللي سلموك الثقة فلوسهم؟ يعني تابع تاريخ عبد الرحمن الشرعاوي وكان يدعم الكثير من الأعمال الناشئة. أمي لا تقولي كذا، أبويا ما سوى شيء، أنا متأكد. فين عايش؟ ما سمعت بالمصيبة اللي سواها أبوك؟ أبوك خلانا على كل يا فهد لا. عمليات تم إيجاد سبب الحريق.
really just to give you a sense of, the types of audio theater you can create in podcasts. It's not always just about talk shows, but it's really about bringing stories to life through dynamic sound effects and great acting and many other different things. This show was actually sponsored by GMC, which was interesting because we sort of managed to do product integration within the scripts of the podcast series, something similar to everything you've seen in the world of TV that you're used to, but applied that to the world of audio. So that did really well for us. The next one that I'll talk to you about is called The Basement. This series is more of a thriller. And it's set in modern day Cairo, and it's done in Egyptian dialect. And this one, the plot is really around a character called Fadi, who is a sort of washed up YouTube star, and he's looking to reclaim his fame. And he moves into a new house in Cairo and finds a box of old tapes in his basement. And he starts listening to the tapes and realizes that it's the ramblings of this sort of psychotic man who used to live in the house, who has some obsession with his neighbors. And the interesting thing is he starts playing the sort of fictional character starts playing the tapes on a podcast of his own. And so it ends up being a sort of podcast within a podcast, and getting listeners to call in and say if they've given him any leads in terms of solving the case. So what we loved about this one was that the audience felt that the authenticity was so real that people started contacting us saying, how can I get in touch with Fadi? Please let him know, that that he shouldn't listen to the haters, and we're all behind him. So I think the sense of realism that came out of this, and people not knowing whether it's real or not real, was one of the things that gave it a lot of hype and sort of led to its success. And the last one I'll talk very briefly about is called The 40 Thieves. Now, I'm sure you're all aware of the central character in the title, but actually this is all completely original content. So what we did is create a sequel to Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, which was centered around his daughter, who was on a quest for vengeance to avenge her father's death. And in every episode, we see her going after a different killer. And I think, what's interesting about this one is that we did the show in classical Arabic, and it's definitely sort of, based on a character that comes from our sort of culture and heritage, and it's very well known. But because it's been sort of rewritten for a very contemporary and modern audience, I think the combination of the nostalgia around the characters and the story, along with the very contemporary format, because podcasts tend to have a very young audience, is what really drove a lot of the success. So I will stop there. Thank you so much for listening to me talking a little bit about our shows, and I look forward to sort of taking any questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Layla. That was very interesting, diving into the world of audio and podcasts. We will definitely come back with live questions at the end. I will now, I'd like to introduce Ahmed again. Ahmed Dewi is the Managing Director of IC Media. Ahmed has been working in the media production industry for the last 25 years, and he has managed more than 500 different productions, very impressive, ranging from TV series, documentaries, and films. So Ahmed, if you're ready, if you can take us through your presentation, that would be amazing.
Sure. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity that we are having here to showcase our thoughts and vision, let's call it. I'm happy to meet you all. I hope the outcome of this webinar will be fruitful to everyone. Looking forward to hear from all who's watching, all their concerns and questions. I'm ready to hear them afterward. After finishing my presentation, I would like to make a small introduction about IC Media Production. We are a company that established basically 2002. We started in Jordan, and we expanded in the Middle East. We produce media production, TV series, film, and docudrama mainly. And we have done, more than 500 up to now different products. Recently, we are working from Abu Dhabi to 454. We have our main head office here in the UAE. And during this presentation, I will just go through to the kind of services that we provide. We provide all logistics for media production. We produce, we buy content, we develop also content in terms of writing and rewriting content. We have a huge collaboration with different entities around the globe in terms of media production. We also handle a distribution process for media production, and we are expanding now into new technologies of media production, which I will explain later on. Mainly, let's say our 70% of production is focused on drama production. We have done lately, during the past 2 years, we have done almost 28 to 30 productions. 26 of them were TV series. They were distributed all around the networks, from Netflix to Joey, Shahid, OSN, Rotana, and all the Arabic channels. Now we are also opening other channels to collaborate with the other parts of the world, especially with Europe, North America, Australia, and Asia. We are seeking opportunities there, and we are looking forward to have collaboration with production companies and platforms. I will just go about the challenges, let's call them, of the media production. Definitely, we are looking forward to lower the cost of production and make it accessible to as much as we can, in terms of individuals that can produce their, or to help them produce their content. And now we believe content is king, and it is the most happening thing, especially during the epidemic. We figured out that we have to move out and look for other chances, and to develop the business itself, and look to different collaborations. We have some challenges in finding the right content in terms of writing, in terms of story, which quite interesting what Layla introduced just a little bit, just a while ago, the podcast. Definitely they are nice ideas, which we are always looking for, and always looking to have this type of content that might engage as much people as possible. As Layla mentioned also before, we have the Saudi market, which is a booming market in terms of content now, especially because they are opening more to the world. We also we are now dealing with the content selling and acquisition, especially to OTT, because now the dominating tool worldwide is an OTT platforms. They are dominating over the media productions, and it's quite impressive how things can evolve in collaborating with such OTT platforms. The forecasting demand and the development of the content to match the OTT platforms. This is also a challenge that we are doing now. We are more interested into short series than long series, and or very long series such as telenovelas. These are the kind of products that the market is seeking now. And as we can see all over the platform with these mini series, let's call them, they are having a huge success lately. We all watched, I think, a Squid Game, which made a $900 million value. So and the budget for that production was approximately $21 to $22 million. So it was a huge success. Now we'll see what comes for the next season. And this is technically what we are looking for. We are looking for this kind of content that might attract as much people as possible. New stories. We will be using, we also can looking and expanding our business to interactivity productions. Now we are in the process of producing these kind of interactive productions. I don't know if you have watched all Black Mirror. They added this kind of feature where you can decide what happened later on, and this is the kind of things that we want to develop, and we are currently working on a production that it will be broadcasted hopefully on May 2022. Virtual audience, as we all know, now we are all virtual. We are developing a kind of a tool that will allow audience to participate virtually in the production process by creating characters and creating stories and storylines for the characters. And this is one of the challenges, but I think it will be one of the most powerful tool during the upcoming 2 years. And also it is mixed with virtual reality productions, which is something now we live in. Recently, Facebook is launching the virtual reality thing, and they are hiring 10,000 employees all around the world just to make this happen. So it's a kind of a development that will happen in a short time. We are working and seeking ideas and seeking collaboration to have this kind of production and just to make them happen. And definitely when we go to social media content now has a boom effect in all aspects. So we adapted our kind of productions that they will match the social media screens, that call them, and format. We are collaborating with Snapchat and Instagram in these terms, using our production and using a new kind of shooting method for the drama itself. We are shooting in 2 different formats: the normal formats that fits a normal screen, and then we are developing a kind of formats that fit the mobile screen and the pads around. And I think it will be a successful product later on in the upcoming 1 year, let's call it. Also, we are interested in collaborating in production. When I mentioned Europe and America, because there is many refugees due to the inconvenient things that happen in the Middle East. So we can also, we are looking to produce a kind of production that can be transmitted in local networks in these countries that will help the integration of immigrants in these countries, and to try to tackle their problems and approach them in a different way by involving them in the local community, and to make also the these countries or the population of these countries see what kind of production or see what kind of drama that comes along with these refugees. And these are kind of production that we are looking for to expand. We have around 16 million Arab-speaking refugees in Europe. We have 6 million in the United States. We have 20 million in the Latin states of America. And they all need, they're all asking, because we have our YouTube channels that are broadcasting there, and we have a huge viewership and a huge demand from this audience or from audience to have more production. So currently we are seeking and we are working on developing this kind of productions. And I barely covered everything that I want to talk about. Yeah, of course, there is a lot of things that I want to share with you, but let's hear from you what kind of concerns and question you might have. So in order for us to answer and then to take different ideas from you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Ahmed, thank you. Thank you so much. That was very interesting. And already we have a lot of questions coming in, but we'll leave them until the end. Our third speaker just joined, which is great. We are very happy for you to join us today, Ines. So a quick introduction about Ines Yaqub. She is an award-winning animation director and the founder of Baby Clay, and an active member of the Union of Arab Producers, League of Arab States. Ines has won so many awards in the Middle East, France, and North Korea. And please join me welcoming her. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Ines, to take us through your presentation, if you're ready.
مرحبا.
أهلا.
شو أخباركم؟
الحمد
مرحبا.
لله.
إيش أخباركم؟ تمام؟
أهلا إناس، سامعانا؟ كله تمام.
أيوة سمعتكم. شو أخباركم؟ تمام؟
أوكي. كله تمام.
ما أعرف شايفيني ولا مو شايفيني ولا كيف؟
شايفين البرزنتيشن. We can see the presentation. It's all good.
أوكي. ما أدري الفيديو ما أعرف مو شغال؟ من صوبي يعني ولا من صوبكم؟
هنخش على الفيديو على طول. Irene?
أوكي. أيوة.
Are we gonna play the video?
ما أدري أنا ما أعرف شايفيني ولا لا، مو شايفيني.
إحنا شايفين. إحنا شايفين. لو عندك option تلعبي الفيديو من عندك اعملي كده.
أوكي. عبد الله شنو الفيديو هنا؟ مو راضي دقيقة.
إذا شغلنا شنو يكتب؟
إناس عايزة تتكلمي. you want to introduce Baby Clay؟ تتكلمي شوية عن Baby Clay قبل ما نخش في الفيديو؟ تحبي؟
أوكي ما في مشكلة.
أوكي.
هذا أوريجينال.
أوكي. أول شيء أنا ممكن أتكلم عربي الكل. أوكي عربي؟
أوكي حبيبي. it's okay.
أوكي تمام. أول شيء أنا سعيدة بالأستاذ عماد لدرجة أن أنا أرسلت النسمة مسج قلت لها طرشي لي رقمه.
أنا أعرفكم على بعض بعد ما نخلص.
يا فيري نايس وحبيت الكلام اللي قاله. وأنا يعني سعيدة بكل الأعمال حقته هذه. أنا من مشاهدين هذه الأعمال كلها كامل يعني صراحة يعني ما شاء الله تبارك الله. أول شيء أنا كنت حابة أن أنا أتكلم شوية عن شركة بيبي كلاي. بيبي كلاي ميديا برودكشن، البيس حقها في البحرين. طبعاً إحنا يعتبر يمكن من أوائل الشركات الإنتاج الرسوم المتحركة. هذه الشركة طبعاً قامت على أسس معنية لها أهدافها إنه كيف نخدم الطفل سواء بالرسوم المتحركة أو بالديكومنتري. اوكي، او بسم اوف ذا ادفرتايز، الامور اللي فيها اعلانات خاصه بالاطفال اللي تجذبهم. طبعا المحور حقي الاساسي انه انا اعتمد على عقليه طفل اليوم. اوكي، فالحمد لله انه احنا يعني طلعنا للعالميه، وطبعا بسبورت من اشخاص كثير يعني، وانا طبعا جدا سعيده بهذا الشيء. وطبعا انتم زي ما انتم شايفين انه الشركه بتعتمد على الاستقطاب الكامل للمساحات البسيطه اللي موجوده سواء في المنصات او موجوده في القنوات الفضائيه اللي عندها فراغ كبير لمحتوى الطفل العربي. طبعا انا لما اقول الطفل العربي انا بخصه بالدرجه الاولى، ولكن هو كمان الطفل الاجنبي كمان اللي هو غير ناطق باللغه العربيه، او انه هو من جنسيات اخرى غير عربيه، بعد الكونتنت والمحتوى حقنا بعد يناسبه. وطبعا ما في تفرقه ما بين الاديان ولا اي شيء، بالعكس انا بكون حريصه انه الموضوع يناسب الجميع في بعض الاعمال. وطبعا في بعض الاعمال الثانيه طبعا احنا لنا الاحقيه كعرب انه احنا نوجه اطفالنا دينيا بالطريقه اللي هم يقدرون يستوعبونها بمحبه مش بفوسنج. هذا بخصوص الشركه، وطبعا مقرها في البحرين واحنا كوادر بحرينيه، والحمد لله الحمد لله انه احنا عندنا يعني مجال كبير 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 من دعم طاقه حكوميه جدا رائعه، معطيتنا مساحه من الحريه انه احنا نقدر ان نرتب الافكار، وانه هم يشجعونا بالافكار. بالعكس يعني احنا ما عندنا اي عوائق. وطبعا تعرفون يعني في البحرين انه الوضع كثير يعني مفتوح، والحمد لله حكومتنا ما هي مقصره معنا في اي شيء. هذا بخصوص الشركه والمحتوى والاشياء هذه. طبعا احنا عندنا مجموعه من الاعمال، عندنا طبعا رجال حول الرسول، عندنا ابن بطوطه، عندنا قنديل الحكايات اللي حقق اصداء كبيره، عندنا كمان طبعا ديكومنتري من الاعمال اللي جدا مهمه موجوده على منصه شاهد في خلقه الشؤون، تعتبر من الاعمال المتميزه اللي بتتكلم عن المخلوقات والنباتات والحشرات الموجوده في القران، ايجابياتها وسلبياتها، الاشياء اللي نقدر ناخذ منها والاشياء، وسبحان الله في كل شيء فيه حكمه. وطبعا انا اشوف ان الاطفال جدا مهتمين بذي النوع من الاعمال، عشان كذا انه الحمد لله حقق نجاح في خلقه شؤون. ان شاء الله راح يكون في سيزون ثاني في رمضان القادم باذن الله تعالى. وطبعا يعني الى جانب الرسوم المتحركه، طبعا هنا هذا قنديل الحكايات حق 2021 حقق فيو جدا عالي في الوطن العربي وفي الوطن الغربي، ومؤخرا اخذ 3 جوائز. وانا سعيده بهذه الجوائز لانه حسيت انه انا بلشت اعمل اروح على البطانه العالميه في تحقيق اهداف المشاهده، وهذا الشيء انا مستانسه عليه لانه مش شيء بالمره سهل انك انت تقدرين توصلين للطفل العربي والطفل الغربي نوع من انواع الكونتنت اللي فيها محتوى وجاذبيه في نفس الوقت، مو فقط جاذبيه، فيها محتوى وجاذبيه.
حلو قوي ايناس، ميرسي قوي بجد، شكرا. ممكن نلعب الفيديو؟
شنو؟
الفيديو. اوكي، انت you're playing the video now.
يا هو في كمان نبغى نتكلم بعد عن العمل الجديد ان شاء الله في رمضان القادم باذن الله. هذا عمل فريد طبعا من نوعه. اوكي، طبعا نستخدم فيه تقنيه فيها مجازفه، ولكن انا اتمنى انه هو يحقق يعني اصداء حلوه، وفي نفس الوقت هذه المجازفه انه هي ان شاء الله باذن الله ما تضر، هي راح تفيد. يعني لما نجي نتكلم عن الضرر نتكلم عن ضرر الوقت يعني، ان شاء الله ما راح تضر، بس جدا شيء حلو. وراح يكون في جمع ما بين بعض من التكنولوجيا يعني ان شاء الله
شكرا يا ايناس. هو في اوديو في الفيديو؟
ايوه بس دقيقه واحده.
شنو المشكلة؟ شوفي إذا تضغطين على الفيديو شنو يطلع؟ ستارت فيديو.
وين؟
لا اضغط ستارت فيديو شنو يطلع؟ مكتوب ان الهوست هو اللي موقف.
مين هم؟
ايه الهوست.
اوكي. ترى انا ماني قاعده، انتم مو قادرين تشوفوني لانه من عندكم مقفلين الكاميرا.
مكتوب
يا
الهوست
حبيبي.
الموقف.
طيب okay, is there an audio for this video or we have technical difficulties?
مكتوب الهوست ستارت فيديو يعني يسوي زوم.
طيب.
كلهم اتوقع
أوكي.
نسمع عندك شو اسمه، عند نسمة انه هي
طيب.
تفتح الفيديو.
Okay.
Okay.
We can now maybe start taking some. Merci Ines, thank you so much. We have some questions coming from the audience. Maybe we can start doing that now. Okay, if you guys can unmute yourself and the cameras, because the questions are coming from for almost all of you. So we have a question for Final Media. Laila, if you can answer this one. They're asking if you are looking for, if you're looking into video production as well at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, we are, and we're certainly open to potential partners to work with in terms of collaborating, taking our scripts, taking our existing formats and converting those into video. So I think what we've seen in international markets is that audio can be a great way, a great sort of testing ground to see what works at a much more in a much more cost-effective way than producing a whole sort of video pilot. And so now we've sort of figured out what works and what doesn't work, and we have a number of successful formats that we're now exploring converting into video and making them available. So open to discussing with potential partners for sure.
That's great, very interesting. It's a good testing tool, I think. Yeah. Okay, another question also for you, Laila. Are you looking to expand in Europe and Asia?
Yes, we are. So we've already started adapting some of our content into other languages. We've always felt very strongly that the Arab world is great at importing content, but less so at exporting. And we see absolutely no reason why, with the high quality of productions that there are here in the region, why we can't be, exporting our own formats. So we started with Turkish. We've done a Turkish adaptation of our sort of flagship series, which is 1001 Nights. And that very quickly became #1 in the Apple podcast charts in Turkey. So that did really well. And now we're looking at, aside from Turkish adaptations, we're also exploring English language and French language. And then eventually we'll be moving to India and Pakistan as well.
That's great. That's very exciting. Okay, now for Ahmed, we have a question about do you have your content subtitled?
Yes, we have. We are working on now subtitling. We have 110 productions that they are being dubbing and subtitles, but we have around 24 of them now subtitles already. So we're gonna launch them. We have.
Ines, if you can mute yourself, please.
نعم.
ممكن تعملي ميوت بس عشان احنا سامعين
اوكي سوري.
Thank you.
I didn't mention something very important, but we are also kind of now launching our own platform that will have our library of productions and originals. So shortly, in a month's time, we'll be launched with this platform where we are going to place it up to different languages, not only English.
Okay, sounds great. And this platform is to showcase your portfolio to clients, or is it B2C?
No, it's B2C. Mainly, it will contain our productions, but as mentioned before, we are also working in the distribution. So there is it is open also to other production companies to be part of it in terms of their productions. So yes, it's a kind of a platform that will be initiated here from Abu Dhabi to 454, and there are several production companies here that will show their cases using our platform as well.
Great. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, يعني let me just let me tell you about what's our platform. It's a bit it matches the identity of the Middle East in terms of content, and it is I don't want to say it's a conservative platform, but it really gives that it really gives that connection to the Middle East and where we are in terms of and content, and in terms of what can be seen and what can't be seen.
Okay, Ines, the question for you is are you looking for producing content outside of Ramadan, or is it only focused on Ramadan? عندك
سوري قولي مرة ثانية.
عندك برودكشن برا رمضان ولا مركزة على رمضان بس؟
لا أنا عندي عندنا واحد برا رمضان، هو موجود على شاهد وهو خاص بشاهد، اسمه عالم جلوبي الملون، وطبعا كان بالتوب 5. he's in the top 5. this is Globe World top 5 نشاهد. اوكي والحين احنا we have in رمضان اوكي the secret of the cave. اوكي انا الحين شفت الاستاذ عماد عنده عمل اسمه الكهف. كيفز رايت مستر عماد؟ ايوه انا سعيده، بس انا على فكره ما اخذت الاسم من عندك، انا هذا العمل اعداد من السنه اللي قبل اللي فاتت.
لا ما في
انا اصلا لما شفت اعلاناته انا I am very happy لانه هذه النوع من الاعمال صراحه ممتازه وفيها موضوعيه، واصلا الصوره فيها الازياء، يعني عموما الازياء يعني واو صدق واو، الازياء حقتهم في هذا جتني حره في قلبي، بس الحره هذه بسعاده، يعني انه انا قاعده اتكلم عن العمل حقهم كانه عملك.
This is that's the spirit. And now you do so you both have a title with the same like shows.
عمري دمعت لانه رائع.
So to answer the question, you are doing things in Ramadan and outside Ramadan, and you have something on Shahid right now, and it's in the top 5. This is really interesting. A question that's
كمان اسمه لندن ستيل قنديل الحكايات ان شاهد تايتلز موفيز ان شاهد، وبعد حقق مشاهدات يعني فيو عالي، واخذ جائزه في ميب تشاينا اوكي، واخذ جائزه في مهرجان الاردن اوكي كمحتوى وكصوره، ويعني العمل ككل يعني اخذ جوائز. طبعا انا
مبروك congratulations إناس. معلش انا بقاطعك
الاخرين
فعلا حاجه يعني نادره ان احنا نلاقيها في الاندستري. حد someone happy for someone else's success. This is something you know I admire this so much. Okay, so now can you
بالعكس انا I support I support الناجحين، لانه هو نجاحهم هذا يعني النجاح الحقيقي لكل الناس هو ترابط واحد. إذا أنا ما كنت سعيدة له هو يعني إحنا ليش نقعد في الصراع؟ بالعكس الصراع الحقيقي إنه إحنا نكون سعيدين حق بعض، وإنه إحنا نكمل بعض. بالعكس شيء جميل. يعني أنا قاعدة أتكلم عن العمل حقه هذا الكهف. يعني حتى الناس يقولوا لي أنت إيناس هو العمل هذا أنت يعني
عماد
ما أعرف الناس، ما أعرف من
عامل لك ماركتينج ببلاش هي.
والله أنا يعني أنا I'm so thrilled بهذا الموضوع. definitely هو موضوع الكهف كان يعني من الأشياء كويسة. هو انعرض على جوي الكهف يعني بيلقى صدى. هاي من الأعمال مثلا اللي إحنا مش نشتغل بعض الأعمال البدوية، وهي بتلاقي بدورها قبول كبير من بعض الناس، خصوصا إنه إحنا زي ما هي تفضلت انه احنا مرات بنتطرق انه يعني نعمل شويه تعديلات، ندخل شويه فانتازيا على الموضوع حتى تكون هو لائق اكثر للطلبه.
رائع.
تسلمي
يا
لي.
الفانتازيا عموما هي بتوصلك للحقيقه، لانه انت لما تيجي تعملين ستوري لشخص رياليتي الملل هيصيدك.
ايوه
بس في
ايوه.
الكهف
ايناس خلينا شويه ناخد questions ثانيه عشان نلحق عشان الوقت.
اوكي.
Maybe Final Media Laila, would you please talk to us about the most on-demand genre at the moment? I think you touched on this, but we got this question a few times. So if you can tell us what's the trending topic right now in podcasts.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few broad genres that we can talk about, right? And it's interesting because the content preferences for podcasts here in the region are quite substantially different from what you see in places like the US and Europe. So there, the sort of genres that we see trending very often are podcasts relating to news, technology, business, generally sort of informational journalism type formats. What we see here in the region is that these genres do really well, but there is a huge demand, which is much greater than it is in other markets, for fictional content. Mm-hmm. Now, fictional content can take, of course, many different forms, and it has its own subgenres. But what we see within the fictional space is that the two sort of predominant areas that do really well are one, series which are sort of short stories that have an element of kind of nostalgia. So 1001 Nights is one of our best, most trending shows, and season 5 has been so successful that we're already on season 5 by now, which has just been released. So anything that is, relating to sort of Arabic folklore and heritage, but sort of adapted and made and sort of modernized, does really well in this space. And secondly, I would say the genre of sort of thrillers, anything that involves suspense and drama and sort of, the thriller genre also does really, really well.
Okay, that's interesting because we got also a question to say, asking if you are looking into horror and comedy. So you're doing thriller.
Yeah, so thrillers do well, but to be honest, it's such early days for the industry in general. There really isn't enough data points for all of these genres to be able to say yet, how successful horror could be or comedy could be, because relative to the sort of amount of content that we have available on other platforms and in video, the audio world is still relatively small. So I think there is a huge opportunity in the market for both comedy and horror as new genres, but they haven't yet been tapped into. So we're constantly kind of experimenting with new genres. We were the first to produce a drama series on podcast. We were the first to produce a sci-fi series on podcast. Horror is definitely within our content calendar for the upcoming year, but it hasn't been done yet, right? So it's too early to say how successful it will be.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I like that you're taking the risk and starting a new something, because people want a proven success of something before they dive into it. So it's nice to offer something new to the audience to know if it's going to work or not. So
yeah, I mean, somebody has to, right?
Exactly. Ahmed, actually, we have the same question to you: the most on-demand genres, and whether, I think you already talked about this, but comedy and horror.
They don't pretty diverse from what is asked for Layla, because this is the trend lately. Thriller, horror, and love story are still dominating. Comedy after the epidemic, because people want to watch something that will just enlighten their day, let's call it. And so these are the most successful genres, let's call them. They don't need action. Action is not really required lately. As I mentioned, they like love stories, thriller, horror, and now we are in the phase of producing horror for the Saudi market. It's a very nice story called Area 57. So it's going to be one of the successful, I think, mini series. It will have 3 seasons. And definitely, yes, this is the genre that the market is demanding. Actually, not in terms only in and it's quite challenging also for Layla to produce something horror for podcast, because it will be an impressive music behind it, or sound effects. That this is how they're gonna attract it. So yes, these are we have it's similar. It's similar to what is asked to Layla as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Ahmed. Now we have a question for Layla. We've seen an increase in the podcast content. What is Final doing differently to attract Middle East audience? And I think you answered this.
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of reiterate. I mean, I think our unique proposition compared to other sort of podcasters in the region is really centered around the type of content that we produce. So we're really the only ones that are producing sort of mass market kind of fictional series, whether it's drama, whether it's thrillers, whether it's you know, sort of more classic stories. I think that's really where the kind of unique proposition is, because most of the other podcasts that are available in Arabic language, while there's definitely you know, huge demand and a market for those podcasts, you know, they're mostly focused on more sort of talk show formats, or journalism focused, or you know, interview style. So I think this is where we're trying to sort of create an industry, and you know, for us, it's not just about producing new shows and developing the demand for podcasts, but it's also about growing the creative talents that can work on these shows, right? Because the you know, producing a show for purely for audio is not necessarily a skill set that exists, at least you know, here in the GCC, when it comes to fictional stories for podcasts. And the skill set is very different from what might be required for TV or film. So a big part of what we've been doing over the last few years is helping to kind of train up budding sort of podcast production talent, and building up that talent within the industry as well, so that there's more people to work on such shows and to grow the industry in general.
Great, thank you so much, Layla. We have a question for Ahmed. I think it's an interesting one. How do you plan to tackle the unsatisfactory endings of interactive films, since interactive films do not follow a set structure of acts and can leave the audience unsatisfied?
Yeah, with more I can no, Inas, you have to repeat the question, because I heard only part of it.
Okay. So how do you manage the disappointment, basically, of the audience if the endings are not, you know, to their liking?
Okay.
Because you cannot structure where the story is going to go. But again, they choose where it goes, right?
Okay. If you go back to my presentation, and there is the second slide on the virtual and or the interactivity production. And this is what we are trying, because definitely me as an audience watching, for example, Black Mirror, and just clicking on the options that it gives me, this is a nice tool, but this is under development. Now our next stage, our next vision to this no, it is that the audience will create the scene. You understand me? And they will create the character itself, and will create the storyline for this. It's not necessarily going to happen in a lifetime or immediate in life, but it will make them. For example, we are trying to develop this, that for the next episode or the next time, he will put together the character and what comes in, then he see it, and it goes to a debate. So it's a different process. It's under development. Definitely it is one of the most challenging, but I think it's gonna happen 2 years time. Everyone is going to be involved in this virtual and interactivity reality of the production and drama.
I'm very excited to see how this is gonna turn out. It's very, very exciting. Ines, one question for you. Do you do animation for educational animation for preschool kids؟ العيال الصغيرة قوي فاهمينهم. انتي على mute. Can you press on the mic? Because you're on mute. أيوة.
ممكن تعيدي مرة ثانية السؤال بس؟
Do you do educational animation for preschool kids؟ بتعملوا للأطفال الصغيرة حاجات تعليمية؟
Yes.
Yes, you do?
Yes, we have. Yeah, we have. There is in Shahid, there is a global word, okay? English and Arabic. يعني في version English وفي version Arabic.
Okay.
Very nice.
Okay, great. Because there's another question I was asking if you have English version of your animation. So you do English version as well?
Sure. There is
okay.
Yeah, for preschool. Very nice.
Yeah. Okay, great.
And there is song also. يعني there is the song inside and out because they can يعني نلفت الأنظار للصغار يعني.
Okay, I have a question for everybody. I think it's a very generic one. How significant is the Saudi market in terms of size and demand? So whoever wants to jump in.
From my side, if I want to answer, it's going to be a 50% of the 40% of the market share. It will be a Saudi product in the upcoming next 1 or 2 years.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, for us, I'd say it's also very significant. I mean, it's already 50% of our audience on the free platforms, and it's even higher proportion of subscribers, paying subscribers on the subscription service. So it's growing and growing every month.
Okay, that's great. Another question we have: what kind of support was provided to the companies during the pandemic? I think we have different. Like base for like Ines, you're in Bahrain, Ahmed and Laila, you're in the U.A.E. Is there any?
Me in the U.A.E. We from Abu Dhabi 2454. We had a lot of support. It was really hard for us during the epidemic, but as mentioned to you when we talked before this session, that we did an operation plan that allowed us to produce 12 production during the epidemic, and that all happened with the help of Abu Dhabi government and 2454. They were supportive. They understood. They came up with ideas. They came up with procedures that helped our productions and made them happen, because we were in the middle of shooting of this production. We did not stop for even a day. Only just we kept on working, and with the support they gave us, it allowed us to deliver what we had to deliver to the networks, and that's why I consider it was a successful year in terms of exposure for us, and financial and productive, and that all was with the support of 2454 and the Film Commission in Abu Dhabi.
Very good. Anyone wants to add to this point? No? All good? Okay, I think we're coming to the end of the panel. Thank you so much for it. I personally really enjoyed it, and I found it very interesting, and I hope I'm sure everybody did too. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure meeting you all.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you لكم، وأنا سعيدة إن أنا تعرفت عليكم. أوكي. ويعني وسامحوني يعني شوية الإنجليزي ليتل إن شاء الله تكونوا فاهمين. أوكي. وإن شاء الله بإذن الله نشوفكم في إندكس، إن شاء الله نشوفكم في المعرض بإذن الله في نوفمبر بإذن الله تعالى. نشوفكم ونتعرف عليكم عن قرب، وإن شاء الله بإذن الله يكون في بيننا تعاون كلنا مع بعض إن شاء الله.
أكيد. شكرا.
Thank you, and don't forget the next webinar. Please, it's called Localization in MENA. It's going to be on the 15th of December. So please make sure you tune in. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.